After watching the Travis Scott documentary on the Astroworld tragedy, Travis Scott and his entire team absolutely deserved all the smoke and litigation they got. Here are 3 things I learned after watching that documentary. I recently watched Trainwreck, the Astroworld documentary on Netflix, because fellow artist and friend Sean King recommended it to me, and I had heard about the tragedy years ago when it happened in 2021. This documentary is actually covering what happened, how it got to the point that it did, and all of the steps that could have been taken to prevent the tragedy in the first place. And I think it is really a great opportunity as artists to study what happened at Astroworld so we can gain a better understanding of some of the responsibilities we have as an artist and some of the things that we should learn about and understand when it comes to putting on a show and having everyone's best interest and safety at mind. Let's dive into the 3 things that I learned after watching this documentary. One of the major things I learned after watching this documentary on Astroworld is the importance of stage design and venue layout. One of the biggest issues that the Astroworld Festival had is poor layout and poor design. Now, the stage itself looked amazing, right? But when you look at the flow of traffic and the crowd control, the design was very poor. I learned that there is someone called a crowd control expert, and they are actually somebody that you would seek advisement. You would get their opinion on how things are going to flow for a show or a venue or a festival, and you would get their opinion on how best to direct people, how best to design the layout of your concert, your show, and the layout of your stage to ensure that there is a good traffic flow so that people don't get stuck in one area and so that things run smoothly, right? So I had never heard of that term before, and it was very interesting to see a crowd control expert. And the main thing that he pointed out was the poor design. Now, how was the layout of this festival designed poorly? For one, the stage was in like a T or like an H shape kind of formation. Instead of everybody coming in and seeing the front of the stage and then deciding to go left or right, essentially what happened at Astroworld is everybody was directed to come from one place, from one side of the stage. So imagine all these people coming in from, say, stage right, and they don't even know that stage left exists, or that seating or that standing room is available on stage left, right? So everybody is coming in from one direction and they're not realizing that there's more space on the other side. So they are all just packing themselves into this little space. And it really brings another good point of being able to understand people's psychology. People didn't know that they had a choice, I would assume, in going to the other side of the stage. And so they just kept packing in, and they want to see this artist. They're very excited. That's the whole reason why they came to the festival. So they're not thinking about necessarily safety or how many people are coming in and out. And essentially what happened is so many bodies, so many people were piled onto each other that people were getting stampeded. They were being trampled. They were being suffocated. They did not have control over their own movements, and they did not have control of their breathing because they were just packed so tightly. Stage design is extremely important. I know as smaller artists, we don't necessarily have to worry about these things because we're usually confined to small clubs and lounges that only have so much seating. They only have so much parking, and we're not quite at that level yet. But if you are somebody who you believe that you are going to make it to that level, I think it's worth it to understand that, hey, as you move up in your artistry and your celebrity, you have to think about what is the best way that this place can be laid out so that people can enjoy this experience and so that they're going to be safe and have a story to tell that's good versus going home and saying how they'll never come back to my show again because I don't care about their safety. That's essentially the first and most important thing that I learned after watching this Travis Scott documentary. You must design your venue and your layout in a way that is going to be most beneficial for the experience and safety of everyone. The second important thing that I learned after watching this documentary, which is something that I've always known, but it definitely solidified in my mind after watching this documentary, is how important our influence is as an artist. When we are on stage, especially being a big artist like Travis Scott. Like, can you imagine if someone like Beyonce did not stop a concert or riled up her fans to act crazy and jump around and do all kind of things? It is so important that as an artist, we understand that we control the energy. We have influence, and that gives us power over the people in the crowd, especially if they love us. They're going to do whatever we say. We are controlling the experience. If we say jump, people are going to jump. If we say rage out, people are going to rage out. And you have to be mindful of the kind of music that you make and the kind of behavior that you're encouraging at your shows. To my knowledge, Travis Scott's fans are called ragers, which in my head is very like reminiscent of rock mosh pits. It can get dangerous. It can get rowdy. People push each other around. They might start fighting. They might actually hit each other, you know? So his fan base, to my understanding, they're known as ragers. If I know this in my mind, I know that raging requires a lot of space. And why wouldn't I want my people to have the space? But as I mentioned before, the stage design was poor. People did not have the room to move around freely and do those things. And that caused the deaths, suffocation of a lot of people, right? There was a point in the documentary where Travis Scott saw somebody being carried out. He saw someone being carried out and watched them be taken to the side of the stage, but decided to continue with his performance. Part of that is not wanting to cause a panic, but the crowd control expert who was on there also pointed out that if even one person is in distress, typically a concert will at least be paused. But unfortunately, what happened in that moment, and nobody can answer this, and I don't think Travis did either. Unfortunately, in that moment, Travis Scott kept the show going and riled up the crowd even more, which made it more difficult for the people who were already being packed into that small area on one side of the stage. And it made it more difficult for medical personnel to get through, for security to get through. It was difficult to get supplies through the crowd because the crowd is too riled up and they're in a rage. His influence directly impacted whether or not somebody could get out of his show alive. And as an artist, you never want to put your fans, your supporters in that position. I feel myself getting a little emotional here because as an artist, you never expect to be the reason why somebody does not go home, right? You just want people to come out, have a good time, maybe escape their problems for a few hours, but not permanently, right? Like that's not what we do as artists. We want people to feel good, or we just want to elicit certain emotions and feelings in people. And we have to understand that as artists, we control the energy. And if we have an opportunity, if we are aware that people are hurting, that somebody may have passed out, been dehydrated, if we as the artists are made aware, we have the power to stop the show. Now, I know some people might be thinking like contractually, you can't go past a certain time, you might be fined, but is it really worth somebody's life to continue a show? Even just one, it's not worth it. And unfortunately, we don't know why he decided to keep the show going, but the show did go on. There are, of course, other players who could have stopped the show as well. But part of the reason for why they said they didn't is because they didn't want to cause a crowd panic. But by that point, it was pointed out that at least 10 other people were suffering cardiac arrest at the top of the stage. And it's just really sad, y'all. It's just extremely sad. So as an artist, we must understand the power and the influence that we have. People are tuned in to the stage. They are tuned in to us on stage speaking in that microphone. They can hear everything we're doing. They can see everything we're doing. And if we tell them to do something, they are likely going to do it. If we tell them to dance, they're going to dance. If we tell them to chill out, they're going to chill out. Hopefully anyway, right? If you got pulled like that as an artist. But when you have a microphone in your hand, you have power. You need to understand what it means to wield that power and what it means to help control the circumstances within your show. Because if you have a tragedy like this occur at your show, you are going to traumatize your fans, and people are not going to want to support you after that, which is what happened in the case with Travis Scott. The third thing I learned after watching this documentary is the importance of venue capacity, of accurate ticketing, and having the appropriate number of personnel and security available in a show. Another reason why this tragedy happened the way it did is because the capacity of the festival was overloaded. So apparently 35,000 people would be able to comfortably enjoy the show, but 50,000 tickets were sold. On top of being over 15,000 tickets, being ticketed over the amount by 15,000 people, there were not enough security and personnel to control the crowd of people coming through the gates. So who knows how many more thousands of people decided to just bust into the festival, not being ticketed, not being searched by security, nothing like that. That is a terrifying situation to hear of as an artist. And again, stage design was poor. There was an overloading and overcrowding of people who were supposed to be there. And unfortunately, there were 10 people who lost their lives. They were over capacity for this show, and there were too many people they could not accommodate, and the flow of traffic was poor. And that is what caused the suffocation, the crush victims, which I learned is people who, sustained a certain amount of weight on their body. That's from people, too many bodies being in the place, standing on top of each other. You could see images of people begging to be let out of the confinement of the metal caging that they were in that sectioned off that portion of the audience, right? And people couldn't breathe. There were way too many people there. It is an absolutely terrifying thought as an artist to ever put anybody who came, they spent their money with me, they came expecting to have a good time, let loose for a few hours, like I said, escape their problems, escape reality for a little bit, essentially. And they have this traumatic experience because my team had piss poor planning. And people passed away as a result of that poor planning. Profits are not worth it, especially when you're losing lives. Why would somebody want to come back to your show and they don't feel that you are going to keep them safe? They don't feel that you're going to pay attention to certain details to make sure you have enough seating for everybody, to make sure you have enough standing room, to make sure you have enough medical personnel, enough security, because on top of we're not even talking about the crowd, right? You don't have the adequate number of security to ensure that if anything happens, it can be shut down quickly so we don't run into thousands of people being injured, being hurt. There are allegations of someone running around injecting people with drugs. That person probably was not patted down. They probably did not have their stuff checked at the checkpoint because they could have been one of those people that just bombarded their way into the festival, right? So many things. There were just so many things in this documentary that had the proper planning been had and had more personnel been appointed to this event, it would not have ended in this tragedy. And I would say that Travis Scott's career, even though he went on to have maybe the most profitable rap concert in history shortly after this tragedy, if I were a fan of an artist and this happened as a result of negligence on Travis Scott's part and his team, I would not want to go. Why would I spend my money to support that and put myself in harm's way? I wouldn't want to do it. So these are the three things that I learned from the Travis Scott documentary Trainwreck: The Astroworld Tragedy. It is available on Netflix. That is where I watched it, and it was released in 2025. If you have Netflix, I would highly recommend that you check it out, especially if you are an artist. It is a great source of education for us to understand the importance of adhering to capacity, the importance of having the proper personnel, the right amount of personnel and security, having a team, having adequate team members who can shut down things if you, the artist, are not able to, or if you're not aware of certain situations, having the right amount of people who have the authority to shut things down, seeking the advice of a crowd control expert, making sure that the way that you design your layout and your stage is going to allow for the most free flow, having staggered start times of the show so that not everybody is in one space. There were just so many different things that we're supposed to be taken into consideration on someone like Travis Scott's level, and it just wasn't. It just wasn't. So I pray for peace for the souls that were lost that night, and I pray for peace for the families who lost their people that night. It all around did not need to happen, but unfortunately it did happen. And we as artists need to educate ourselves, train ourselves on how to understand our influence in these situations and understand how we can help to keep our supporters and our fans safe so that they can come back to the next show. Well, thank you for tuning in to Lex Chat. If this video helped you, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. In the comment section, let me know the next few topics you want me to talk about and chat about. But until then, my name is LexC. Peace. Speak your mind and don't let it get in the way. We can either build this tension day to day, or we can meet up and just let it fade away. Ooh. Can I get you all alone? Can I? We've been talking all night on this phone. Let's hang it up so you can put it down. We can turn this from a late night call into a meeting where there ain't no talking.